Hey my friends, so a few years ago I made a lesson that was called "This Simple Pattern Tells You Every Chord in Every Key." It became the most popular video on my channel. So many people found it helpful, but so many people were confused also as to which kind of chord shapes to build because I didn't include any visuals in the lessons like I usually do. So this is a follow-up lesson where I'm going to include chord diagrams, tabs, fretboard visuals, and some extra tips that I picked up since then. And not only that, but I put all of the visuals in my Chord Dictionary guide that you can get first link in the description box. So this is a guide where I used to have a lot of PDFs that I offered at the end of my lessons, and I decided to put them all into the same resource that you can download. So you will get, for future reference, all of the visuals for the simple pattern, but also lots and lots of cool chord shapes and chord progressions to try that are beautiful. And you can get all of that by clicking on the first link in the description box for free. It's my pleasure. So let's do a little recap of the simple pattern. We start by picking any note we want on the sixth string. Let's say this one, which is A, and that becomes your key. So I'm going to find all chords in the key of A major. And then I play this little L shape pattern. Right? So it's the 5th fret on the 6th, 5th fret on the 5th string, and then 7th. Right? So those are going to be the root notes to build all of the major chords in my key. Then we go 3 frets down from that point, 1, 2, 3, and we play the same L pattern. So those are going to be the root notes for all minor chords we're going to build in our key of A major. And then there's a low note to complete the rectangle besides the root notes of the minor chords. And that's going to be our diminished triad. So now let's explore the chord shapes we can use for those, right? So starting from the 6th string for the major chords, we're gonna do this bar chord right here. You bar your whole index all the way on all strings on the 5th fret, then you add your ring and your pinky on the 7th fret of the 5th and 4th string, and your middle finger on the 6th fret of the 3rd, and it does your A major bar chord. It's important to apply just enough pressure to get all strings to ring beautifully, because if you press too hard, it's gonna sound off, and if you don't press hard enough, you're gonna get buzzing sounds and muted strings that are dead, right? So just enough pressure. Then the next one in our pattern is starting from the 5th string. You have two options right here. You can bar with your ring finger, right? So you put your index here on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and then you bar from the strings 4 to 2. The problem is that we don't want to bar the 1st string. We don't want that note here, so we need to lift the ring a little bit to mute the 1st string and play the 4, 3, and 2, the strings 4, 3, 2. If that's a bit too difficult for you, you have an alternative to that chord, which is like this. You're gonna bar the 5th fret from the strings 5 to 1 and mute the 6th string. And then you place all of your fingers in order, middle, ring, and pinky. Right? And that gives you an extra note on top. So we can play the major chord shapes here, or like this. You choose the one that's most comfortable to you. I prefer this one, right? So I have all major chords in my key of A. Then I'm gonna do the same 3 frets down, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna build my major bar chord from the 6th string, but I'm gonna lift my middle finger, and that's gonna be the minor chord shape. Once again, it's even more difficult here because we are on the lower fret, so there's more pressure to apply, especially if you're playing acoustic guitar. So if you're having a hard time with this one, you might want to practice that shape higher on the fretboard where there's less pressure here, right? So that's the minor shape from the 6th string. Then from the 5th, we can play like this. So it's the same shape from the 6th, but we're starting from the 5th. And then we can play it 2 frets higher. So those are my minor chord shapes. And then the diminished triad, right? So many people were confused with this one. I played something that was quite too hard for nothing in the original video. I played this triad, and I wrapped my thumb around to play the bass note right here on the 4th fret. So that's not very practical to play, so I'm gonna give you alternatives. You can play it like this instead. So now you don't get that awkward stretch, but you still have 2 strings to skip or mute, right? So I'm leaving my middle finger in the way a lot to mute the 5th and the 4th, right? So if that's too much of a challenge for you, instead we're going to cheat a little bit and we're going to play a minor 7 flat 5 chord, which is very similar. So it goes like this. Right? So now we have just 1 string to mute, which is the 5th. Right? So once again, I leave my index in the way. And you can not play the 1st string. Why it works? Because usually I played it like this. A diminished triad, and there were notes that were doubled in here. That's a G sharp in both cases. So I changed the G sharp for a new note that wasn't there, which is F sharp. So now we have 4 different notes in it instead of 3. That's what we call a chord extension. That's why it's cheating, but it works in the key also, right? So now I have all of my major chords, all of my minor chords, and then the minor 7 flat 5. And you can play them in order of appearance, right? So we have A, which is the 1st chord, then the 2 chord, 3 chord, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So now that makes it clearer for the all the chord shapes. And once again, if you want to keep all of them, it's included in my chord dictionary that you can download. First link in the description box. An extra tip that I didn't include in the original video, some people were wondering, what if I cannot jump back down 3 frets? Let's say I want to play in the key of F major, so the F note is on the 1st fret, so I can do and play my bar chords in major. But now I don't have room to go 3 frets down. So in that case, you use the octave trick. You jump 12 frets higher, because 12 frets higher is always an octave up. It's going to play the same note, but higher pitched. So if I was on fret 1, I can jump to 13, because 1 plus 12 is 13. So that's also an F. Low F, high F. So I can do my pattern, and then I can go down 1, 2, 3, and that will work. But then it's a bit uncomfortable, like it's really, really high up on the fretboard. So what you can do instead is to start that pattern from the 5th string instead, right? So instead of finding the F note on the 6th string, I'm going to find the note F on the 5th, which is on the 8th fret. And now I can play that simple pattern again. It's the same principle, and I can go down 3 frets down, and that works, right? So in that case, the chord shapes, we already know the major bar shape from the 5th, but from the 4th, we don't know them yet, so I'm going to show them to you, right? So it goes like this, right? You can use, you can interchange your middle and your ring, whatever makes you most comfortable, like this or like this, right? And then the second one. So we have not the most practical chord to play. It's like an open D chord if you know your open chords, but fret it as a closed position so that we can play anywhere, right? And then if I play my pattern 3 frets down to play the minor chords, then we already know the minor bar chord from the 5th string. And then if I play from the 4th string, it's very similar. It's almost the same thing, but we just play the pinky 1 fret higher to compensate. So this one is more comfortable to me, right? So, and for the diminished triad, you can play it like this. Or if you want to play the minor 7 flat 5, you can play it like this. Same principle here. When I play this, I have two notes that are the same, E and E. But now I change it for a new note, D. Right? So once again, we can play all of the chords in order if we want. Which is another alternative if it's too high on the fretboard. Let's do another example starting from a minor key this time, right? So let's say I want to play in the key of G minor. I find the note G from the 6th string. But now I'm starting in a minor key. So my pattern are going to be for minor chords, right? So minor bar chord, minor bar chord, minor bar chord. And remember, the diminished one is always besides the minor chords, right? So to complete the rectangle, it's besides the minor chord. So I'm going to play my minor 7 flat 5. And then I do the opposite. Instead of going 3 frets down, since I start from minor, I go 3 frets up. So I go 1, 2, 3, and those are going to be my major chords. Right? So now I have all chords in the key of G minor. So let's talk about practical songwriting applications for this, right? Because now it tells you what are the chords in the same key, but you don't have to play them in order. You can play them in different order or random order and try them and try to make your own vocal melodies or things on top, right? So I can play in the key of G minor and just go elsewhere in my pattern. Let's say I'm going to pick this one after. And then I can play in my major pattern, which was 3 frets higher, right? So I can play this one, and then this one, and then this one, and play in random order. So the chords that I chose, that's how it's going to sound, right? And then you can create on top, right? And start creating on top of it because it's all in the same keys. Those are all chords that are going to work together. And if you are quite more on the beginner side and bar chords are not really under your fingers yet, but you'd like to create, one trick is to use a capo instead, right? So instead of playing my G minor bar chord right here, I'm going to replace the bar with a capo on the 3rd fret. So now I don't have to play it like this. All that's remaining is the 2 fretted notes, which is the equivalent of my open E minor chord. Right? And then you can ask yourself, what, with all the other bar chords, how many can I change for open chords with my capo instead? So the 2nd chord was D minor. This one, there's not much I can do to make it not a bar chord. But the next one was E flat major. I can ask myself with the bass note right here, is there a chord that I know that is on the 5th string 3 frets higher than the open string and is a major chord? Yes, this is a C shape, C major shape. Right, then the next chord was a B flat bar chord. Same principle. Is there a chord that I know that starts on the 6th string 3 frets higher than my open string and is an open chord? Yes, that's the G chord. And then the last chord, the F. You can also try to find, is there an open string that's the same thing, right? So the fretted note here and the open 4th is the same thing, right? So do I know an open chord starting from the open 4th? Yes, the D open, right? So I started with this, with all bar chords, and now I found a version with almost no bar chords by using the capo, right? So don't forget that you can keep all the material from this lesson in my Chord Dictionary, which you can download. First link in the description box below. You're gonna get all of the graphics of the fretboard, the chord diagrams, the tabs that I included in this video, plus many other chord charts and chord progressions to read that are beautiful and that came from several other lessons on my channel. So it's my gift to you. Take it. It's free, so why not, right? And don't forget, you can subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Most people watching my channel are not subscribed, so if you want more lessons like this in the future, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you real soon in another video. Until next time, au revoir.